Hello and welcome to another edition of All Angles. I'm Jody Ann Quarry sitting in for Dion Jackson Miller. A special welcome to those of you watching online at onespotmedia.com. We've been hearing the story of Khanice Jackson, the 20-year-old accounting clerk who went missing last Wednesday morning after leaving home for work. Her body was found 2 days later on Friday at the Portmore fishing village in St. Catherine. She'd been sexually assaulted. A man known to her, someone who lived in her community, 50-year-old mechanic Robert Fowler, has since been charged for her murder. Khanice's death has reignited the conversation on the cycle of gender-based violence in Jamaica and the killing of our women. There's also been a call for women to be able to arm and protect themselves against violence using guns, mace, and pepper spray. Some, however, argue that the call for weapons misses the mark and once again leaves women alone to protect themselves instead of creating a culture and a society that keeps them safe. On top of all of that, there are seemingly hundreds of women and girls who go missing every single year in this country, and some have still not been found. So, how do we make the country safer for women and girls? And how can we make it safer for everyone? Can it even be done? And are things getting better or are they getting worse? Get involved in tonight's conversation with our hashtag TVJ All Angles. It's going to be a difficult topic, but one you have to join in on. This evening, we have a panel of experts who will be answering the questions we've asked and more. But before that, Kalisha Williams will help us understand just how far-reaching this problem is with this overview.
Khanice Jackson, abducted and killed. The name many Jamaicans will not soon forget.
Khanice was our living angel. That is God blessing to me, her mom, her family, everybody we should touch. That was a blessing from God.
Jasmine Dean, the case of the missing US student, still a mystery.
We hope that some mercy could reach the hearts of those who have her in their captive, if that is the case, to release her.
These stories opened old wounds in recent times, highlighting a decades-old problem. 2002, 2004, 2009, 2010, 2015, 2017. Year after year, more and more girls and women go missing. And like Khanice Jackson, many have been found dead. But like clockwork, efforts to make the country safer for all remain a pipe dream. Portia Simpson Miller in 2012.
We cannot drop the ball. We have to continue the process of ensuring the things to be done for the protection of women and girls.
That same year, then Minister of Youth and Culture Lisa Hanna was among a group that marched on the capital city after 5 females, including an 8-year-old, were raped in less than a week.
So we're calling on the nation at this time to report. We're asking children, we're going into communities, and we will not stop our efforts until child abuse and sexual abuse is stamped out of this country.
Now, Gender Minister Olivia Grange in Parliament on Tuesday.
To what extent does the continuation of this hostility speak to collective failure on our part in this House and on the part of the whole society, Madam Speaker? If we all cannot protect our women and girls, our most vulnerable, from such horrible acts of violence, how do we even see ourselves as a civilized society?
But this is not unique to Jamaica. Gender-based violence is a worldwide issue. Recently in the UK, the death of Sarah Everard, who was murdered while walking home from work, sparked protests in that country. According to the United Nations, 243 million women and girls aged 15 to 49 experienced sexual and/or physical violence by an intimate partner in 2019 alone. But since the COVID-19 pandemic, violence against women and girls has intensified. Kalisha Williams for All Angles.
Thanks, Kalisha. Now joining me for this discussion this evening are Dr. Sapphire Longmore, President of the Jamaica Psychiatric Association and sitting government senator; Nastasia Robinson, Legal Officer at Jamaicans for Justice; Joy Crawford, Executive Director at E for Life; and Sharon Robinson, Senior Director at the Bureau of Gender Affairs in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. Welcome. Conversations about issues like the killing of women happen often. You saw in that overview done by Kalisha that we've had this conversation year in, year out. Nastasia Robinson, you represent an organization that continues to have conversations about violence against women. What has JFJ seen over the years with this issue?
You know, Jody, just yesterday I was saying that, you know, we've spoken so much about this. Every time another young woman is missing or is killed, the conversation happens. It's loud. We do this, and then, you know, it's almost like the country goes back into a slumber until another woman is killed. At Jamaicans for Justice, and I'm sure at Joy can attest to the experience at E for Life as well. The complaints of violence against women and young girls is something that we get every single day. It is so much so that previously JFJ it's not an area that JFJ usually used to focus on, but because of the prevalence of the issue, we decided last year that it is definitely an area of law that we needed to take on. So it's now, since last year, one of our main focuses. And, you know, we started last year, and the amount of reports, the stories that we've heard, the matters that we've had to sit in, they've been extremely exhausting and disheartening. And it's almost from where I'm sitting, and it's very disheartening. That's the only word that I can say right now. And if you're not careful, you kind of get discouraged. But you can't, because a lot of these young girls who are suffering, they really have no refuge, and so we have to continue to provide the services that is necessary to them.
Many of these young women don't have refuge. Joy Crawford, E for Life, and organizations like yours provide very limited refuge for these women, whether it is counseling and support or maybe a place to put them. But the issue of violence against women is much larger than your organization may be able to handle. What kind of needs come to you?
Okay, thank you. The question about needs, you know, I like where Nastasia started, because we're in the care business, the care and service part of the work, and it is extremely difficult just even to listen to the overview that came on before us and know that I experience this on a daily basis with a number of women and families. It's you know, it's discouraging in some way, because it's been so long coming, to the point where I'd love us to be able to communicate that one of the greatest need right now that we have is to have real action. You know, every time we have the loud speaking and the 9-day wonder, my girls now says a 3-day, yeah. It hurts survivors who are still alive. They lose hope, they get angry, they relive their own trauma. We have to turn up the amount of counseling that we do. It just really has greater effect than we see just in the media. And so I think what we need more than anything else to move forward is clear, decisive. And there are some very clear gaps that we've been talking about for years, you know. issue with justice, issue with the law, issue with protection orders, issues with community mobilization, issues of really desensitizing and stop normalizing intergenerational relationship for the young girls. Issue of just how even now in every time this happens, there's this constant debate about who is to be blamed and the re-victimization of victims and the discrimination when we're alive and when we die. So all of those things are very clearly articulated over the years, but we really haven't had any sustained real change in this. And I think that there's a misunderstanding about the real cause of gender-based violence. We're focused a lot on what we call the contributing factors, but it's really about human rights. It's about femininity and masculinity being seen as human and equal. It's about power and how do we address the issue of power and gender inequality. And so we have to call spade spade, but action, what we need now is just real sustained. I really use it sustained. We cannot take another going through 4 or 5 weeks and then we're back to normal. It really hurts the survivors who are still around.
Survivors are hearing these conversations. Survivors are reopening wounds, their own wounds, as they deal with the traumas that they would have endured. But Dr. Sapphire Longmore, you're president of the Jamaica Psychiatric Association and also a sitting government senator. And there has been a discussion that says men don't just kill women in the case that we've seen of Khanice Jackson or in the case of Ananda Dean, missing persons like Jasmine Dean who have been affected here in Jamaica. They don't just kill women or abuse women or attack women. They work up to it. They are doing other things that are antisocial bits of behavior that then allow them to get to that point. Are we to consider this situation here in Jamaica, violence against women, to be a mental illness?
I think there's probably no other way to classify it as such. It is an understatement in my mind to say that these persons who perpetuate these acts are mentally ill. We have many dispositions regarding personality disorders, and what you're seeing is almost a profile of psychopaths and antisocial personality disordered persons. But what you're seeing is also the criminality manifesting as possibly serial offenders. And it begs to, in terms of trying to track down and creating profiles of these persons who commit these acts. These individuals don't just decide to go out and target someone. There is usually a history that tends to be common in these persons. There is usually behavior and predisposing factors that you can see and almost predict certain behavior. What is unfortunate, though, is that the violence that we're seeing against women is a manifestation of the violence also in the society. It is a sad reality that we have to deal with some of the crimes in a small, a beautiful country that Jamaica is. But COVID has also added to the stresses that existed before. So unfortunately, it is heartbreaking to see it, but it is not too shocking because there were warning signs before. There were indicators that it could happen. And unfortunately, those indicators still exist.
Unfortunately, those indicators still exist, and we'll pick up after the break as we take our first break inside TVJ All Angles. Remember, our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. Stay with us. We'll be right back.